Okay, so it's 4:02. I'm going to take the roll. Denise Carruthers, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, Dolores,
Yes, here.
and Ann,
I'm here.
Paul Webb,
Here.
Rick Moody,
Present.
Terry Hood,
Here.
Andrea Paisley,
Present.
and so am I. So Randy, we have the entire board in attendance. All right, we're going to do an abbreviated agenda today in light of the fact that we're on a teleconference. The first item on the agenda is to approve the minutes for our last physical board meeting, which was February 20th at the Franklin Library. I'd entertain Randy has sent those minutes out. I'd entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
So moved. So moved. Second.
Okay, so Randy, Rick Moody made the motion and Paul seconded it. Any discussion about the minutes? Any changes, corrections? If not, I'm going to call a question. So does anyone oppose the approval of this motion? Hearing no dissenters, then it's an 8-0, well, approved by a vote of 8-0. Okay, Dolores, financial statement. Do you want to discuss that?
Sorry, I forget to unmute. I forget to unmute myself sometimes. It's pretty cut and dry. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
It's pretty cut and dry, but I did notice when I looked on the late fund report, I have a gift line item that is over like 2%. So the 541101. So I was going to move $1,000 from 549901 to 541101. If that was okay for everybody. Do I need to share my screen to see it?
Paul, does she need to make a motion? Need a motion to make that adjustment?
Yes, and Chairman Mike, it works better, I've found, if everyone mutes except if you're talking. That will eliminate the feedback.
I agree.
And so I think what she said was she wants to move $1,000 from one line item to another. And Dolores, shake your head if that's correct. And I'll make that motion to move the $1,000 from one line item to the other from the gift account.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Call the question. Is anyone opposed to that motion? Hearing no dissenters or abstainers, the motion passes 8-0.
Who seconded?
Who seconded? Randy didn't see.
Rick Moody. All right, so on to new business. The first item is an amendment to add a board treasurer, amendment to the board bylaws to add a treasurer position. Other library. So I believe that Janann, you're the one who submitted this amendment. Would you like to make the motion?
I so move. I think we should change the bylaws to add a treasurer to the officers.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion. Adding this position doesn't change the overall responsibility of the board for the finances. It does what Paul and I see at the Brentwood board meeting, where there's a board member who is more familiar with the details of the treasurer's report and helps the director present the material to the rest of the board. Is that correct, Paul?
That's correct. That allows a trustee to be more involved with the month-to-month financials and explain it to the rest of the trustees.
And the
And then-
reason that I thought it was a good idea is that when we went to that meeting in Columbia, the regional meeting, they had some examples of financial reports that to me were a lot easier to understand. And I think if a treasurer could kind of summarize some things for us, I think that would be great.
Any other comments or discussion? If not, we'll call the question. Is anyone opposed to adding this position? No. So the vote is 8-0 in favor of adding the treasurer's position, which will be filled starting the next fiscal year. Okay. Next item is of new business. I want to appoint, Chair wants to appoint a nominating committee. Nominating committee to do two things. We have two trustee positions, two trustees whose position expire in June. Dolores Bratton has been serving an unfilled term originally held by Marilyn Hoff. So Dolores is eligible to now be appointed to a term of her own. And Terry Hood is completing her second 3-year term, so she will be leaving the board at the end of June, and we'll have to find someone to replace her. We're getting a lot of feedback. I'm sorry. So that's one job, is to appoint that, and then the second will be to identify and recommend officers for our 2021 fiscal year. Both of those things will probably take place in our June meeting. So I would like to appoint a committee. I don't think there's any motion required. I'd like the committee to be Janann Merrill and Denise Carruthers. And I believe both of them are willing to do that. Okay. The next item is to appoint committee to review the WCPL org structure. That was one of our goals in fiscal year 2019-2020 with a May deadline that we're not going to achieve because of the pandemic. So in reality, this one will probably push out into the next fiscal year. I've asked Pandrea and Rick Moody to serve on that committee. I've not heard back from either one of them. Not to put you on the spot, Rick, but to put you on the spot, are you willing to help with that?
Sure.
Andrea, I know you're struggling with a foot injury, but I'm hoping that you didn't hurt your head in the process, and you're maybe once.
Yeah, I have no problem serving as long as I am able to get to the meetings. That would be it just depends on the timeline, but I have no problem serving on the committee if that goes well.
Did we lose you? Did we lose?
No, I'm here.
Pandrea? Are you willing to do that once you're recovered?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I have no problem serving on the committee as long as I am able to get to meetings.
Well, for now, they'd probably be virtual. But,
And we're good.
okay. And,
yes.
Hey, Mike,
yes.
are we going to get some materials to start off with? To see what the present structure is.
Yes, we will give you materials. Dolores and I'll help you get prepped. And Dolores, I don't think I've mentioned this to you, but we would like you to designate a staff member, and we'd like it to be Jeffy Nicholson to work with the two board members, since Jeffy's got a long history of experience with the library and knows the people pretty much at every location to help work with the two board members on this. Are you good with that?
I think that's a great idea.
So Again, probably won't get going on this till after the physical restrictions are lifted on us, but I do want to make that appointment of those two. So thank you for your willingness to serve, and we will give you more preparatory materials.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna actually change. Dolores, you want to go ahead with D? That's the overview of our digital library. You've sent some materials out.
Mike, do you want to do that, or do you want to vote on E and just let me go in from that to my director's report?
That I prefer that, as long as we don't need to take a motion to change the agenda. We'd like to make a motion. I thought Janine was going to be on the call, but she's not. The foundation, the head of the
I
foundation.
am on the call.
Oh, you are on
Right.
the call.
I am,
Okay.
but I couldn't, I didn't have enough bandwidth to get on live, so I'm just listening in.
That's okay. A lot of days I don't have enough bandwidth, so I can relate to that problem. What we want to do, I know that this is all up in the air, could be subject to change later, is get approval from the library board to close the library, the main library early on Thursday, the 1st of October. Is that correct?
Yes, it is. And we'd like to start the event by 6, which means if we could have the library closed by 5, I know we'd have to do some setup prior to 5 p.m., but we wouldn't interfere with patrons before that. So that would give us an hour before the event started, which I think would be fine to clear out the parking lot and then get new people in.
Okay, so could I have a motion from someone, please, to close early on that date?
Paul, make the motion.
Paul
I'll
made the
second.
motion.
Andrea.
Andrea seconds. Any further discussion? Okay, I'm going to call the question. Is anyone opposed? Hearing no opposition, the motion passes 8-0, Randy. With that, I'm going to turn the microphone over to Dolores to go ahead and do the update on the digital resources and then transition into her report.
Okay. First of all, I want to make sure that everyone has received the information that I sent to Mayor Anderson and Mike Weber about our phasing in of opening the library. Okay. And I'm glad Paul is here. I'm glad Paul is here because he's been involved with this and the budget stuff. But do you guys have any questions or concerns about that process? I think we're in a unique situation that we voted to close the library, so I'm thinking we may need to vote on opening it up in phases on May 4th. Paul, is that right?
My mouse is running away. You're in with the department head meetings, and so the mayor, from my discussion, is trying to get everything reopened by June 1st in stages. And so it looks like your plan that you submitted to Mike Weber and the mayor looks reasonable under those under his goal.
So do you think we need to take a vote or just go with that as it is?
My opinion is if we voted to close, we need to vote to open.
Agree.
I think we should vote also because it says in there that the Board of Trustees decided this. And so I think we should vote to show that we're in approval of it. And also, I would just say, but I don't know exactly where it has to be sent in. I know you've sent it to some already, but there's a couple of grammatical errors and stuff in there you might want to check through.
Yeah, Jeffy did some editing for me, and I'm gonna send it back out.
Dolores, can I ask a question?
So exactly what
Okay.
is the most, well,
I just had a quick question. Was there a
Go ahead.
reason why Bethesda and Leapers Fork starts after the other 3 branches? Do you have
Yes,
that?
and talking with the branches, we decided, the branch managers, we decided to phase it in that way, with opening our largest first and then our small one, and then the other 2 in the following week.
Okay, thank you.
I had a question. I
Okay.
don't know if I read it in here or missed it. How do we keep the books clean?
There is ALA guidelines that that recommend that you quarantine the books for 24 hours when they come in. And we also have water mixed with bleach that we wipe them down with. And that is good according to ALA guidelines and CDC guidelines.
So that's when they bring them back. But when do people start coming in the library?
They're gonna we're gonna do the curbside to go first, and we'll probably start letting people actually come in the library in small numbers starting June 1st.
And will they be tested to see if they're sick? You're gonna take their temperature when they come in?
They can't, no, we're not planning on doing that, but one of the county attorneys said that we can require that people wear masks if they want to come into the building. If they're out in the parking lot trying to get in, we can't tell them to wear a mask, but if they want to come in the building, we can require them to wear a mask.
The reason I'm asking, I have some customers who are in retail businesses and worry about when it opens up, the people coming in and touching the merchandise and how they're going to keep that clean.
Mike, Mr. Chair, Dolores, and Rick, the governor has a press conference at 10 tomorrow. And if you're keeping up with that, they're going to give some guidelines about what's expected with the CDC rules, the safe distancing. It's roughly 50% of restaurants to open Monday, with retail to open Wednesday. And they're going to issue, and he was adamant that they're going to issue these guidelines from the state at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. And you might have also heard the state has ordered a face mask for every Tennessean. They just haven't figured out how to get them to us yet. But so it's a work in process. So those are all valid questions. And hopefully, as we get into May, we're going to find out from the state level what their guidelines are going to be. But hopefully as early as 10 o'clock tomorrow at that press conference.
This is Marion Bryant. We sent something to Dolores today from the CDC. Specifically, it was about books, but one of the things I found reassuring is the CDC representative repeated several times that they did not consider touch from books to be a very high level risk. They feel like the biggest danger comes from aerosol. So he did not try to pretend that there was no risk whatsoever, but he said that they do not think that that is the high area of risk.
Dolores, what do you think about, are the employees going to be wearing masks?
Yes, we, in discussions with among department heads with the mayor, any staff that come in contact with the public has to wear some sort of a mask and gloves. At least
gloves?
And gloves. We're going to do that through the month of May.
I'm kind of surprised about the gloves because there's a big controversy that gloves are cross-contaminating things. So, the mask, I can understand that. And I don't know, I guess we can't make people, but I think it would be a good practice if people, once we do start opening in small numbers, my personal opinion is that since they're going to have the mask to them, I read the thing that Paul was talking about, why can't we just say we would prefer ahead of time, if you come to the library, that you have your mask for a while? I mean,
Well,
That's just my opinion.
that's also dependent, and this may be something Paul can come in on. Maybe it depends upon how many masks that the county can get their hands on, whether or not we're going to be able to provide them to the public. So, and the last I heard, we didn't know when we were going to be able to get our hands on them. Paul, have you heard anything about that?
That goes back to the governor. That question was asked by one of the news reps, and they said that the state is going to help the businesses. So if we look at ourselves as a business, to not only encourage the face mask and maybe even the temperature of things, but also try to help businesses get supplies. So that's up in the air. Hopefully tomorrow at 10 o'clock, the governor will say this is what's going to happen, and there may be enough supplies for public spaces like the library to get those. But I think things are still up in the air, and hopefully, tomorrow and early next week we're going to get some clarification. So having the staff wear the mask sounds like a really good thing. I'm not sure. I'm kind of like with Terry on the gloves, but I'd rather have the gloves than not. When I've been out, I've been wearing gloves and the mask, and I have all these people looking at me, but that's okay. That's what I decided, not others. So there's not a definite answer that I know of, but the EMA folks, Dolores, may have a definitive answer if you want to check in with them tonight or tomorrow.
I've just been talking with a lot of my health professional friends about their opinion, doctors and nurses. They said, unless you're going to change your gloves each time you touch something different, when a doctor goes into a room, when he leaves that room to go to a different patient, he changes gloves. So you're going to cross-contaminate from one person to the next. So they said it's better to just wash your hands instead of changing gloves, unless you're going to have a different pair of gloves. So I don't wear gloves because of the cross-contamination. My next question is, that's my opinion on the gloves. Now, the next question is, when you start phasing in for people to come in, who's going to be at the door counting? Like, Walmart has people there counting. Are you going to have people counting, or how's that going to go?
We have talked about that. Right now, we've been focusing on opening up in the month of May. But we are talking, I talked with Gordon about maybe using some of the SROs that are not at the schools right now. So we're going to have something in place to do a count, whether we have staff rotate and count or we have an SRO. We have plans to do that, whatever A and B turns out to be.
Are we going to test our employees? That's part of, I work at a bank, and we're going to, every day when they come to work, we're getting those little thermometer guns that don't touch you, but we're going to test every employee before they go into work.
That's another thing that we've talked about is the temperature testing, and it just depends on if we can get our hands on the materials. And Paul may be right. Emergency management may have some fillers out to try to get some.
Dolores,
Or maybe,
today,
could you check with the health department? They may have some too, if the emergency management.
Yeah, I can
Dolores?
chat with them today. Yes.
can we limit the board approval of just the approval of the plan to open in May with no public access to the building, just your delivery, your door side delivery, and then do another, I'd like to have another video call anyway in May, a board meeting, and then approve by the plan to reopen our facilities when maybe more of these unknowns will be answered.
Okay.
Limit today's
That sounds
approval.
good.
So can we have a motion to do this? What do you want to call it? What do you call it, Dolores?
Library to go and virtual reference.
In May with no with no patron access to the buildings for restrooms or any other purpose. Someone want to make that motion?
I make that motion.
Terry
I'm
Hood
sorry.
makes-
I have a caveat to add to that, to your motion, Mike.
It's not
You
mine,
said-
Terry.
You said the patrons won't have access to the building, but that's technically not true. That will be actually going into the rotunda area or entranceway, if you will.
The foyer.
Thank you. However you want to call it, the entrance. They will technically be in the building.
Okay.
Okay.
So Terry, you made that motion. Do I have a second?
I second the motion.
Denise seconds it. All right. Is there further discussion on just this part of the reopening?
Yeah, I have a question. How is this going to be relayed to the public? How's this going to be, information going to be sent out?
We're using several methods to get information out. We're using the county's Everbright account, which is an emergency notification system. We also have Williamson County Ready, I think it is, .org. And then we'll have our Facebook pages, and Randy will send out stuff to the press. So there will be several avenues we'll use to get it going.
Dolores, did we suspend or postpone all due dates during the pandemic? Were all library
Here-
material?
We did, but we're going to be collecting fines again May 4th.
May 4th. So will all books, all materials that were previously due, will they be due May 4th? What
I
happens
don't
when?
think we did not discuss that, but if they had books during the pandemic, they should not have fines. The fines should only start accumulating May 4th.
So if somebody's had materials out, they need to know they need to return them May 4th, or they will begin to be charged fines for delinquent materials. So that needs to be part of the communication as well.
Okay.
Or do we need a longer grace period?
Yeah,
Let me ask,
that might
let's ask
also,
that question.
that might be a problem for people that are still having to self-isolate.
That's Pandera makes a good point. Those are self-isolating, and then to turn the spigot on, if we're not accepting items now, is that correct, Dolores? You cannot return a book now. You're going to have a huge backlog.
You can return it, but if you don't return it, you're not charged a fine.
Okay, because in the Brentwood, they're saying no returns. So it creates a huge backlog. I'm kind of agreeing with the chair in that we encourage people to get them back, but there'll be a window of whatever words you want to use until pick a date, May 15th or May 31st. And I think that's up to discussion, but May 4th seemed a little strict as we try to get the information out. That's my thought.
Well, what we can do is we can process anything that's checked out May 4th, if it's not returned correctly, if it's not returned on time, there'll be a fine for it.
I would agree with that. That would be back to normal process. You check it out on May 4th and it's due the next, whatever the normal due date is. That sounds reasonable.
But should we give people who have materials out till the end of May to return them without incurring any fines, so that they do have some time to do that?
That also sounds reasonable, Mike.
I was actually
Dolores?
thinking first.
You were thinking June 1st?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. What do the other board members think about that?
That's fine with me.
Sounds good.
I
Can we-
agree.
Dolores, do you have any problem with this? Can we implement it without a whole lot of nonsense? You're the one who's got to handle the
Yes.
system.
Yes,
Okay.
shouldn't be a problem.
All right, other questions about this reopening, this part of the reopening?
Mr. Chair, can we, that part, to make sure that we have it in the minutes correctly, could someone restate, especially for the minutes, this is my assumption that we've got any items checked out May 4th and after would be the standard return date and fines would apply. Anything that is out prior to May 4th during the pandemic closure would have until May 31st into business to be returned without any fines. Is that the consensus?
I think so. Anyone object?
Okay, I think if we get that in the minutes, that will cover us if somebody calls it to question. So I just wanted to clear that. Thanks.
Yep. And if there's any question, I would hope we'd err on the side of, if someone says, you know, I'm still self-isolating June 1st, I would hope we're somewhat sensitive in handling that situation.
Can we have someone restate the motion before we vote, please? Thank you.
Okay, Dolores, do you want to try it? Or so on May the 4th, we're going to reopen with your library to go and what other reference services? Restate that part of the motion.
Okay, motion to approve opening the library for library to go and virtual reference sources beginning May 4th.
With the additional verbiage that Paul has provided, saying that materials checked out May 4th onward be subject to normal policy.
Materials checked out May 4th will be regular policy, regular circulation policy.
And
materials out during the closure will be due June 1st.
Andrea, are you okay with that?
I'm fine with it, but I think everybody else said May 31st.
June 1st,
Okay.
May 31st, we're good.
Which is, pick one, I don't care.
Let me make the motion that Dolores said. I will make that motion. This is Paul. I'll make the motion and make the date June 1st.
I will second that motion.
Okay.
This is Pandrea, by the way.
Andrea seconds. Any further discussion? Hearing none, let's call the question. Is anyone opposed or want to abstain from this motion? Hearing no opposition, the motion is approved by a count of 8-0. Okay, Dolores, you want to continue with your update?
Okay. We have been doing quite a bit with digital resources. We have done some story times using WCTV's resources. Stephanie, our children's department manager, scheduling people to come in and do some special story times. And I think that's some of that is scheduled tomorrow and some next week. We have some adult programs that we are scheduling for the month of May. Alzheimer's Association is going to do something virtually for us. Our new e-card numbers are, we've had 567 folks sign up for our e-cards. We have on our story times so far from WCTV, we've had 517 views on those. And our hoopla numbers, I think, are part of what's in your stats, but also they're turning out really well. Our reads numbers have increased. Hoopla is our streaming audio, ebook, and movie service. And that is something that we're going to need to look at when we look at the budget, because it's a pay per go, pay as you use service. And we've cut back because it was costing so much money. But Philip told me today at Fairview, there's been some people that's unhappy with it. But unless we do some moving around of funds, we really cannot provide any more money for Hoopla at this time. So our reads numbers increased during February of 2019. It was 16,723. This March has been 18,554. So our digital resources have increased. And does anybody have questions about that?
Was the patrons were unhappy because they couldn't have access to Hoopla? Was that what the issue was?
Well, what happened was they could have access, but we had to limit the access. We went down, we were allowing folks 8 checkouts at a time, and we had to go down to 4 checkouts. And so because it was so expensive. So that was mainly, I understand from Philip, what the complaint was. So like I said, I think we're going to need to look at that. And there's been well, first, before I move on to something else, any other questions about that?
Well, Dolores, do we need to redirect money from something else like book budgets to Hoopla?
I think we need to talk about that, but as Paul being, and I'm so glad Paul's here, I'm going to pick on him, being the chair of the budget committee, we will need to look at the budget. But now I think there's too many things up in the air still to try to say exactly what we need to do, move money from here to there. The county mayor has asked me and all the other department heads to look at what a 5% operational budget would look like, and a 10% operational budget would look like. So, Paul, do you have any comments on that?
It's just uncertain times. And of course, if the economy does not recover for various reasons, then the county revenue is going to go down. I serve on the Convention Bureau board, and that business is shut down right now. And so the county brings in a lot of money in sales tax from that. And if some of these businesses don't come back, that will affect the property tax. So the federal government is not, at this point, wanting to reimburse states and local government for lost revenue because of the pandemic. So that means we'll have to make cuts. And the budget guidelines that the budget committee revised last week, it's a status quo budget, no new hires, no capital projects unless they're in process. And even those capital projects that are in process are being reviewed and may not be fully completed until the revenue is determined. As like we talked about earlier, we're just uncertain times. If the economy were to recover in the third quarter, then I think we're all going to come back and revisit that. The state legislature is currently scheduled to come back into session on June 1st, and they may revisit things as there's more information coming out of Washington and the economy. So it is hard to do anything. So to directly answer your question is, yes, we've got to be prepared with a flat budget, no new hires. That's the guidance from the budget committee. And that if things continue on this scale, or if we have to close down again, then every operation needs to look at a 5 or 10% goal, cutting operation budget with the goal of trying not to reduce staff. You know, I'm an advocate for the last thing we do is reduce staff. We may reduce hours, but we want to keep people on board, keep their benefits as long as possible. So we'll see. So that's a long answer to that, but the point is having the 5% cut and the 10% cut, if we need to implement, is something the board needs to be aware, and how we, as a board, keep the library running with those budget cuts.
So just a reminder, Dolores, what's our fine revenue? $60,000, $70,000 a year?
Yes,
So
and
that-
we've lost that revenue during this pandemic period. Now, we do have some fine money that is still in our deposit account. I haven't used it yet. So that will be something that we have in hand to use when we need it.
But here, let me make a point. So that's about 3% of our budget's $2 million thereabouts. Fines account for about 3% of our budget. That money the county has let the library, don't necessarily believe in fines, but the county's let the library keep that money and use it for purchasing technology. We've lost it probably as we go forward in this revised mode of operation. Will probably still be at 50%. So as you look at our budget cuts, Paul, I would hope and maybe other entities will make the same case. They ought to recognize that we're already taking a direct hit in other ways beyond the 5 or 10% you're looking at us to cut out of other line accounts.
Right, and if you can imagine, with the hotels shut down, the Convention Bureau gets no revenue.
Yeah.
And so and other parks, the Parks Department, no revenue coming in from many of the activities that they charge a fee from. So everybody's in the same boat, and it's the great unknown. Those of you that are in business know you don't know when the customers are going to come back, how they're going to spend, who's going to keep their jobs. A new economy is probably going to emerge out of this, from what I'm hearing. And I'll give you a last one on this one. Is we had our Convention Bureau meeting yesterday, and this was the consensus from around the country. When the doors open up, there will be those cabin fever, whatever reason, they're going to jump out. About a third of the population is going to jump back, go back to normal. There's going to be another third, roughly, that are a little cautious. They may do takeout, but they're still going to be cautious and not take trips and not go sit at a restaurant and not take a vacation involving hotel or air travel. And then there's going to be another third, especially people like me that are older, pretty much going to stay at home or be with the family and friends and not venture out until this is all settled. So if you look at that, my age group is one of the key travel folks in the off-summer peak. We're staying home. And that cuts into a lot of the revenue sources that local government has, which is sales tax and hotel motel tax. The good news in this is right now, according to the city of Franklin especially, they are still issuing building permits and getting things built. So things are still being built and houses are still being sold. Of course, sidebar, houses being sold means we got to build another school. The only thing that we're putting more money in this year is to open up the new schools that are going to open up in August, which we've got to pay those. Everything else, we've already got the revised school board budget, and it is flat as well, except for those items. And then they, as well as Dolores said, they are also looking at, if the state and federal governments don't come in to replace some of that revenue, what will they do to cut costs with the school system? So we're all in this kind of equal, is what I want to say. So making those cuts is not being picked out. The library is not being singled out.
I realize that.
One thing that I was on a conference call yesterday with Christy, I can't remember her last name now, and some department heads are looking at some funds that might be possible for certain capital projects that are in the works but haven't been paid for yet. It couldn't be for new buildings, couldn't be for that sort of thing. But I asked Kevin and Nina if our roof and HVAC system here would qualify for the grant, and they seem to think it will, because Kevin said he has that on a priority list, number one, for the county, because we can't get Freon for the HVAC system. So that may be the only capital project that we get done next year. Have you heard anything about that, Paul?
I think in the overall of the county view is the upgrading of the buildings for the energy efficiency that Schneider, I think it's Schneider Electric is doing, and Johnson Controls. We issued bonds for that, and so if we've issued bonds, then those have got to continue. And so the projects, like in your case, the air conditioner to increase the efficiency, or if it's the difficulty getting Freon, and then we're not to the point now that we can't fix a leaky roof. We if we've got leaking roofs or bad plumbing, we're going to fix that. If we get to the point where we can't fix that, then we'll be cutting more than 5 or 10% of our operating budget, I think. So those things are going on. It's two-phase, as you heard. Part of that is part of the overall county energy efficiency work, and the other part is if anything we've issued bonds for, then we're obligated to keep that project going. But I'll give you one item. They are reviewing, for instance, the animal shelter has started and bonds have been issued, but that doesn't mean we have to complete it as designed. So there may be some things that are delayed that we're going to come out of operational funds until the economy improves. So you can build a building shell, but you don't have to finish it out on the inside. And so those are the kind of things we're looking at. So the only thing that's going to continue as is getting that school building. I think there are 2 school buildings coming up this fall, and getting the teachers in there. And then if it were today, then we're just kind of stopped until we get a better feeling of how the economy is going to go.
Okay. I know there's been some questions about IT, but before I move on to that, is there any other questions about capital request or budget?
Well, I have one a comment about the digital resources, which we were kind of talking about, and you gave us numbers on new e-cards and things like that, which is good. But I'll go back to that question I had about how you're going to let people know that the library is reopening for library to go services. I've gotten a lot of really good emails and blog posts from the library, but how does the community that's not part of the library get this information, and what's being done to let people who have never set foot in the library know that all these digital resources are available?
Well, Jeanette, it goes back to what I said previously, and how the library also marketing its resources. We'll just have to put the word out through our social media sources and newspapers, use the county system, publicity system, that's got about 9,000 people signed up on it. Put it out in our e-blast, which that reaches our users. But if there's any other areas you can think of that we're not hitting, I'll be glad to hit them. But that's what the plan is at this point.
Well, thank you for that. But I would say that's a big push we need to be working on right now. So as a board member, I'd like to go on the record to say, because we're have to scale back on physical use of materials, whatever. And I don't really know. I don't know about marketing, but I think it needs to be a focus about getting the word out to the community about what great things the library has to offer. So,
Dolores,
if I
I
could,
don't know. Do we have any
yeah, I want
lines?
that. I know, Dolores, our Main Street paper, we have the Main Street Fairview paper now. I know they would run an article about it. But maybe we could tie that in with the library cards that we were, tasked with, or challenged with promoting the library cards to like our local government reps. So maybe it could be done somewhat that way, because I know like Fairview had their BOC meeting, so it was broadcast, and so maybe that what Jan suggested, we could tie it in that way too.
Well, that's a good point, Pandrea. One thing I had looked into before this pandemic kind of hit the fan was doing a brief presentation at the next commissioners meeting and have library cards, and then shame the ones that don't have library cards into getting them. Not really shaming, but you know what I mean. As a way to promote the library. And also, I was going to Creed at WCTV, one of the things he's been doing out of the ordinary since all this has started is he's been doing public service announcements for emergency management. So we can also get him to do some of those announcements too, that the library's going to be open and that sort of thing.
Dolores, Brentwood seems to have better connectivity to the homepage. I see stories on Brentwood homepage or Brentwood homepage about the library quite often. We don't seem to be quite as well connected. Maybe we could talk to them and find out who they know and get a little bit more pub through them to reach unserved people.
Yeah, we've had a few stories in the Franklin homepage. So
maybe we could tap that a little more. Williamson AM, Mrs. Cheap had a real nice article about the Nashville Public Library digital resources that I think I forwarded to you. Maybe we could get them to put in Williamson AM an article about what we're doing.
We could try. Randy, are they on your publicity list? Williamson AM? Not the weekly.
Oh, well, I send it to the community of the 10 and to the Williamson Herald and another girl that covers a bunch of other papers, but I don't know what all they are.
Okay.
I'm not
Did
a
y'all
marketing.
hear?
Yeah, we did. I'm not a marketing person either, but maybe we need to do more than just a PR press release. Maybe we need to try and talk to somebody at one of these organizations and see if we can engender a little interest in putting a story in there.
Mike, I know I got an email. I saw you all in there too. Maybe you could do a story on all of us doing, people doing story time to bring it. And, we have probably a lot of people that work in the TV industry here in Franklin, and maybe they'd do a story on Channel 17, 452 of us, the story times, and for your children to be watching for this. Because unless I had gotten an email for it, I'm going to be recording next week. I think, Janann, you're going to be recording a story. Several of you've probably, Dolores, you've already recorded your story. So, highlight something like that, because I know there's several that live here in Franklin. So if I saw one at the Home Depot, so I know we could contact the news media, and maybe that's something, I don't know if this is out of her job description, but Stephanie could contact them, say, this is a news story we'd like to share. I don't know. That's just a thought I was having for your children. since you're going to be doing, and then when I read that your summer story, maybe we can kind of get a jump on that and do a introduction to the summer program. Is going to be virtual. I know just with trying to help my grandchildren virtually today, this might be a good resource for parents to have and put on their calendar. So just might reach out to the news.
Maybe we could get each commissioner and the mayor to read a story, and there'd be more interest in publicizing that than there is me reading a story.
I think put that in Stephanie's lap and let her kind of take it from there about that.
I'd like to chime in. I suggested to Stephanie a local person here. He's a professional liar. He's won like lying contests, and basically one of our local characters that many people know. They ride their horses like through the drive-through at McDonald's. Maybe like if there's somebody like that in everyone's community, like someone that's like really well known for like their good deeds, or someone who, you know, does something like that. Like Jerry could read his story from the horse. I think that would that would gain more public or more local interest anyway. Especially if like they're well known. So just my thought.
When I got that, I thought, oh, that's a great idea, you know, because a lot of teachers were doing it to their students, but we're doing it to the community. And I thought, that's perfect. And like you said, get Dusty Rhodes, the different other people, contact them and say, could you come and read? And so I just think that would be a feel-good story for the news. So that would be a good way to get our, you know, hey, come on in. That was my thought. Oh, that's a good way for some good PR.
Okay, so Dolores, we're at an hour, and I want to try and keep this call a little shorter than our normal board meetings. Do you have other items you need to update the board on?
The only thing was I was briefly going to talk about IT.
Oh, good.
You know, I sent out the email that Ryan was going over to emergency management, and I talked with, well, through email, I talked with Lee, who's one of the IT employees, and Dave, who's over IT.
Dave
and
Thomas.
Dave Thomas, yes. And right now, Lee and Ryan are working on big projects, server projects mostly, before he moves into his new job. And during the interim, Ryan and Adrian will be working on our library. We'll be working on our library tickets, our IT tickets. And Dave said that he will post Ryan's position, and he said it would be a promotion for 3 of the employees, IT employees. So Adrian is the one that's had the most experience at the library besides Ryan. So I'm kind of hoping that he'll be one of the 3 that applies. But right now, that's where we are with the IT situation. And unless anybody's got questions, that's about all I've got.
So Dave will select the long-term replacement from individuals who post. And in the meantime, since he provides the services, he'll fill in with part-time as needed.
Yes.
Are you comfortable with that?
Right now, I am comfortable with that, because we had, before Ryan went full time, we had someone that was in Ryan's position, but he was out for quite a period of time because of health issues. And they didn't leave us in a crunch then. They helped us out. So I think that I think at this point, I think it's going to be fine.
And we're probably fortunate that Ryan is still with the county and didn't leave to go with another company, because
Yeah, he didn't
they
go,
still
he
have the
didn't go to,
opportunity to
that's right.
contact him for help.
That's right. He didn't move to Kalamazoo or anything. He's still going to be around, so that'll be good.
Okay. Do other board members have questions for the director?
I have a suggestion. I guess it's as much for Randy as anybody, but Randy, you do such a good job before the board meetings of sending out a packet of information. Then you also do a great job. Thank you so much for doing the minutes from the board meeting. But I'm just wondering, when you send out those minutes, could you resend those attachments that you send in that initial packet so that when we get that email, it will have everything together in it? Does that make sense?
The new way that you will get the board packets and the minutes will be on the library's website, just like you got the
So
packet this time.
Okay,
That's how I told Ross.
and so the minutes will be posted there as well.
Yes.
Okay, well, when you make that post of the minutes, could you also include all those, like the budget report and, anything else that's attached in that initial posting? Could you also repost those so that you can make one click and have all that material there at the same time to refer to?
Janine, I think it will work that way. When we posted it this time, you should have received an email that everything was there. And when the minutes are posted, it will be the same thing. It'll go to the same location and everything will be still there.
Right, I know it'll still be there, but I'm just thinking it'd be nice to have it all together at one click. I can find it. I'm just saying it'd be nice to have it all referenced. I know when I was on the foundation, when we get minutes, the budget would be on there and everything else, so that it was all in one place. But especially like for this meeting, I appreciate all the bits of information that have come to us, like the increases in the digital cards, and then also how many story time views we've had. But those are all just like separate items. And, you kind of have to look in lots of different places to get all that together. So if that could all be put together in one place, so we can, as we look back, could find it, I think it'd be easier. But I appreciate all the information.
We'll work it out and see what the best way. It was a goal, and I think I had talked to Mike about this. It was a goal to try to get everything, the packet and everything through the website. So, but we'll work with you, Janine, and get it the best way we can.
Thank you.
Other questions or discussion points? If not, before I adjourn, I'd like to suggest that we do another video meeting on what would be our next regular meeting date, which was May 21st at Franklin. So instead of coming into the library, which will still be physically closed, I'd like to do another virtual meeting, and we can review the progress that's been made with respect to our ability to physically reopen the buildings for more than just pickup services.
I agree.
Okay, so let's target that. All right, Dolores, for our next meeting, same way, same time. Well, not same time, different date. Same mechanism. Maybe we'll be better with it.
That's fine.
Okay, well, I'd like to thank everyone for participating. Hopefully everyone stays safe and you're not part of the group that runs right out when they lift the order and put yourself in peril. You've done a good job protecting yourself. Don't let up. Thank you, everyone.